Welcome back to the channel, guys. I'm Sheldon, and this is Behind the Enthusiast. Now, today, oh man, this is literally the night before the first race of the season, so the final thing I have to do for the bike is change out all the oil. I'm going to be changing out the oil and the filter. So I've already warmed up the bike. That is the first thing you guys need to do before you do any oil changes. Warm up your bike. So the bike's already warm. I've got my oil pan, and I'm going to go over the list of items that you need to change the oil and the filter on a 2004 Honda CRF450R. And for those of you who don't have the exact same bike, but do have some similar models, you can use this how-to video as reference. And if there's any questions that you guys have, either call your local dealer or refer to your owner's manual. So let's get started. All right, guys, so before you get started, you want to make sure that you have everything you need to do the job. Now, the first thing that you should have on your list are the O-rings. This is the brass one. I don't know if you guys will be able to see it in there, but this is the brass one for the right side. And you're going to need two of these. These are the crush washers for the drain plugs. So you need two of those for the left side. You are going to need the oil filter. And you're going to need oil. This is the oil that is recommended for this bike, so that's what I always buy from the dealership. And you're also going to need your ratchet. Now, if you guys want to use different tools, you can. This is just what I use. I need 10 mil for these ones. And as you can see, it is right there. It is already leaking. So I'm going to go ahead and drain that and continue this process. Alright guys, so while this is draining, you can see that it is still dripping just a little bit. You can set up for the next drain. So this was the first one. That is the 10 mil. Now the second one is actually going to require a 12 mil. So that one is going to be just behind it by about 2 or 3 inches. So you guys are going to end up going right in here. All right, there you go. So one right there. So that'll be the second one. So you can drain that one out at the same time. All right, so both of these are now out, and it is, well, I recommend checking the threads. So make sure there are no burrs or anything like that, you know, any metal shavings, because the block is aluminum and it does strip very easily. I've already had to deal with that once already. So just get into a good habit of checking everything, clean it off. As you can see, I've used some paper towels just to clean them off and inspect them. And now the oil is going to drip onto the frame. It's not going to bother it at all, but once they are done dripping, put these back in. If you guys have a manual, refer to it for the torque specs. If it doesn't list any torque specs, make sure that you guys are using a very small socket and make sure that you don't over tighten them. And remember, we are using the brand new crush washers that I showed you guys at the very beginning. Now, this is going to be for you guys who say, oh, why can't I reuse my O-rings? Well, this is why. These crush washers, you can see there's a bit of a groove from where the head of the bolt has compressed. So that is now garbage. You want to make sure that you have brand new ones. which are completely smooth. All right. So that is why we do not reuse crush washers, okay, guys? All right, quick tip, guys. When you are going to tighten the bolts again, make sure that you do it by hand to start. So just use this end of the socket. If you can't reach it, like the one on the inside there. Now, basically, you just hand tighten it only. There shouldn't be any binding whatsoever. If it starts to bind, back it off. Make sure that it is actually aligned perfectly straight, and it should go all the way in until the crush washer is about to touch. Then switch over, put the actual the ratchet on, and then start to tighten it down. And again, just be careful if you don't have, like a torque ratchet or whatever it is. If you don't have something to measure the pressure that you're putting onto it. Me personally, I actually use my left hand because it's not as strong. So I know that I'm not going to over tighten something if I use my weaker hand. So that might work for you guys, but just be careful when you're doing this. Now on to the oil filter. The guard that is on the frame, this will come off with the 10 mil. So that is really simple. It's just one screw. Comes off right from there. Very simple. It opens up this whole area, makes it way easier to work on. Now you are going to need an 8 mil as well, just to get these two bolts out. Now, again, keep the drain pan underneath because there is still probably some residual oil that will drain out. And there we go. So these are all the components that are going to come off. So keep in mind, this is the left side, this is the right. This is the filter that was in the bike. As you guys can see, there is a spring. Be very, very careful when you are taking this whole assembly out. This will actually be seated on top like that. So it is likely to come out as one piece. So you can see that goes on there. So be very, very careful when you're taking this out. It may be a little bit tricky, it may be a little bit stiff to come out. So if you do get a good grip on it and you pull it out, make sure that you don't lose the spring in your oil pan or something like that, or any other hardware for that matter. So now that this is all removed, again, we are going to be using a new oil filter. So that is what we have right here. We're going to be using that, reusing the spring, cleaning this part up just a little bit. There is an O-ring around there. You guys can see that O-ring. I'm not changing it right now. It is optional. I believe I've changed it already. So I'm not going to change it right now, but always a good idea to have something like that on hand just in case. So I'm going to reassemble this stuff with the new oil filter, put the screws back in, button it all up. But this is where we end up filling the oil, and we are going to be using the window sight at the bottom here to get us to about half. And so we're going to end up doing both of these compartments first before we turn the bike on again or do anything like that. So I'm going to show you guys both the left and the right. All right, guys, so when you're putting this back on, make sure that you are lining up the spring right in the back. I will be showing you guys a photo for reference of the little indentation where the spring needs to go. Now this will be forced out by the spring, so you actually want to hold it in place, It doesn't matter if you put the left one or the right one in first, it doesn't matter. But remember, this one is the longer one. This one is the shorter one. Now, what you want to do is actually alternate them. And so you want to tighten one of them down, and then the right one, if you're going from left to right. So tighten the left, then the right, left, right, and tighten them equally until you get it right down to where the gap here disappears. And once they're snug, then you can actually tighten them that last, quarter of a turn or whatever. So very similar to changing your wheels on your car. You want to alternate, lug nuts from opposite corner to opposite corner. You kind of want to do the same thing for this as well. So here's just a little bit of a cheat for you guys. While you're working on this, your hands are probably going to get really, really slippery from the oil. The cheat that I have, that I actually just used now, is a pair of needle nose pliers. Basically, you just grip them on and just give it a little bit of a turn just to pop it off. Now, the other thing you guys should be doing is inspecting any of the case around this filler point, because you want to make sure that dirt and anything else is not falling into the compartment when you undo this. Now, again, there is an O-ring. I'm not going to change it, but you guys can change these. Generally, the O-rings, I don't change them every single time, unlike a crush washer. So, but that is something that you guys should consider changing at some point. Make sure that you have a funnel that is completely clean. Make sure there's no dirt in it whatsoever, because you don't want that stuff getting into your engine. And while we are filling, we are looking at this sight window here and watching the level rise. As soon as it gets basically to about halfway, you want to stop and leave it and then go over to the other side. And we will end up filling both compartments. And when you're done filling the right side, come back over and check the left just to make sure, because the oil does have to trickle down. So while you're working on the right side, you'll allow this to fill up a little bit more, and then you come and check it again. And as long as it's at the halfway point, it should be good to go. And then at that point, you can actually turn on the bike and cycle the oil through the engine, and then turn it off again, and then check the level, make sure it's still at halfway, and you'll be pretty much good to go. And there we go, guys. It is at the halfway mark exactly. Now, keep in mind, when you are actually filling the oil up, the bike is going to be potentially on a stand like that, the triangle stand. Now, I put a piece of wood underneath it to stand it up completely straight. So that is what you want when it is standing up completely straight, and that means you are done filling the left side compartment. All right, so this is the right side, guys. Now, what we're going to be doing is taking out this screw right here. Now, again, you are going to have to switch back. You're going to need the 10 mil for this. Now, this one is very easy to come out. This is the one where we are going to be putting that brass washer on. All right, so that is going to be going on this one. That will actually be removed, and you're going to leave it removed. You're going to put the new washer on, obviously, but you're going to take it out, and then you're going to leave it out while you fill this. Now, once you're done filling this, you'll know that you're done when it starts trickling out of this hole. As soon as it starts trickling out of this hole into the drain pan, you stop filling this, you plug this back up, and you close that, and you are done. You don't have to mess around with anything. You strictly go by this hole, and as soon as it leaks, you know it's full. Very straightforward. All right, guys, I am finally done. So I know the last thing I said just before the outro here was that it was very easy. What'd you guys think? Was it easy? Was it difficult to follow? The one thing to keep in mind, make sure that everything is tightened back up. Make sure that you put the guard that is on the frame, make sure you put that back on. And the thing that I can't stress enough is that when you guys are using this video as reference to guide you along, remember that if you have any doubts about anything, refer to an owner's manual or service manual or call your dealer. Now, the thing that I did just now, I ran the motor basically for about 30 seconds, 45 seconds, and it allows the oil to cycle through all the compartments, and then you check that little sight glass window where it was half full. Make sure that you check that again, and basically what I do is I do half, I start the motor, about 30 seconds, 45 seconds, just to get it to cycle through, shut it off, don't run it for very long, then fill the oil up again to basically half exactly. So you do that twice, all right? So don't do it just once. Don't just dump it in and say, well, it's completely full, now it'll drain, it'll cycle, and it'll be done. No, it's better to do halfway, 3/4 at the absolute most, just so that it gets enough oil to cycle through for that 30 or 45 seconds that you just run the motor so that it cycles. That is it. You don't actually want to be going out and riding the bike for like 5 or 10 minutes or anything. Just run it for those 30 or 45 seconds. Make sure that the oil is cycled through. Then you check it that second time, and then you are done. You button the bike back up. You wipe up all the oil on the floor. You park it. My recommendation is to let it sit overnight, because if there's any pressure where the O-ring or the bolts or whatever, something's not tight, generally you will find a puddle of oil underneath your bike. Ask me how. Well, I'm so glad you did. I actually had about 2 years ago when I was racing before the pandemic, I actually let the bike sit overnight, because that's my rule, and I found a puddle of oil underneath the bike. I didn't tighten up one of those drain plugs, and so thankfully my rule helped me out. I realized that something wasn't tight, so in the morning when I woke up and checked the bike, I tightened up what was leaking and I was set. So I didn't just, cross my fingers and say, okay, it's done, and go riding. So hopefully this helps you guys out. Bike is ready to go, and hopefully so is yours. And that is it. So if you guys like this video, make sure to smash that like button so that I know that it's working. If you guys have any comments or questions, leave those down below. I will try my best to answer them. If I don't know, I will refer you to other videos or other sources where I know you guys can find that information. And as always, potential subscribers, this is what we're getting into. If you haven't subscribed, this is my series of Behind the Enthusiast. There are going to be a lot more videos like this one. There are going to be videos of me at races. There's going to be track day videos. So I'm going to have to find a cameraman for that, though, because I can't do that. So anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed this, and I will see you in the next one.